The EU's chief negotiator drew battle lines on the Brexit divorce deal today after David Davis was accused of undermining trust and behaving like a gangster. Michel Barnier warned that the bloc would not accept any backtracking on the package that was painstakingly assembled by Theresa May in Brussels last week. He also raised the stakes on trade, warning there was no possibility of a full agreement on the future relationship being reached by the time Brexit happens in March 2019. The combative comments came after David Davis scrambled to defuse and put a row over his claim that the UK's commitments on the Irish border were merely a statement of intent and not legally enforceable. Furious MEPs seized on the unacceptable remarks to accuse the UK of behaving like gangsters, while Angela Merkel opened a new front by warning the UK should not assume it will get a transition period if it does not honour commitments. EU leaders responded by signalling a crucial summit on Friday will push for fast progress on writing the divorce deal into a formal treaty. At a press conference in Brussels this evening, Mr Barnier echoed the hard line.We will have a final agreement only if the political commitments taken by May in the name of the British Govt last Friday are respected, and we will be vigilant. We will not accept any backtracking from the UK, he said.In a letter to EU Premiers. Council Chief Donald Tusk appealed for them to stand together in the second phase of the talks. This will be a furious race against time, where again our unity will be key, he said. After his gaffe on Sunday, Mr Davis was deployed on the airwaves yesterday in a desperate bid to clarify his comments, insisting the commitments to preserve a soft border between Northern Ireland and the Republic were more than legally enforceable. His correction appeared to satisfy Dublin, who said they were happy he had acted to straighten the situation out. An EU Commission spokeswoman accepted that the deal remained a gentleman's agreement until it was written into a treaty. But there was deep irritation in Brussels at the blunder.One EU diplomat joke that the summit conclusions had been Davis-proof. A draft of the text confirms that EU leaders will sign off the divorce deal, meaning that trade talks can get underway, a significant boost for Mrs May. But it adds, negotiations in the second phase can only progress as long as all commitments undertaken during the first phase are respected in full and translated faithfully in legal terms as quickly as possible. Weighing in briefly on Mr Davis today, Mr Verhofstadt said his comments were unacceptable and the European Parliament would insist on a legal text ASAP. Remarks by David Davis that Phase 1 deal last week not binding were unhelpful and undermines trust. EP text will now reflect this and insist agreement translated into legal text ASAP. Brexit, he said. Mr Verhofstadt told reporters in Brussels that Mr Davis had scored an own goal. I have seen a hardening of the position of the Council, of EU leaders, and hardening position of the Parliament, he added. Mr Verhofstadt and Manfred, a key ally of German Chancellor Mrs Merkel, have proposed an amendment to the parliamentary motion stating that trade talks can only continue if the UK fully respects the commitments it made in the joint report and they are fully translated into the draft withdrawal agreement. Green MEP Philip Lambert's accused the UK of acting like gangsters. How can Britain be taken seriously globally if it behaves like a gangster in its international relationships, he said. Mr Weber widened the spat by calling for a tough line on the move to two-year transition deal. The British government is assuming it will be granted a transitional period, during which the UK will enjoy continued access to the European single market, he wrote in an article for Politico. There's no guarantee that will happen. The transition period will rely on the approval of the European Parliament. Whether it signs off on such an arrangement will be entirely conditional on the progress made in this next phase of talks. Mr Davis posted on Twitter this afternoon. Pleasure, as ever, to speak to my friend Guy Verhofstadt. We both agreed on the importance of the joint report. Let's work together to get it converted into legal text as soon as possible, he added. I look forward to working closely with the European Parliament in the next phase, including on a top shared priority, ensuring admin procedures for citizens are as streamlined as possible in both the UK and EU. At his press conference in Brussels, Mr Barnier said the divorce deal joint report would be translated into legally binding and precise language, with a draft of the withdrawal agreement produced early next year. After briefing EU ministers, he also indicated there was frustration about the UK's lack of a firm position on what sort of future relationship it wants with the remaining 27 nations. Many ministers said that the UK must clarify what it wants, he told reporters. Saber-rattling will increase pressure on the UK to finalise details of a withdrawal treaty early in the new year before transition and trade terms have become clear. That could undermine Mrs May's mantra that nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. There are also mounting questions about the sequencing of the deals. Mr Barnier ruling out a full trade deal by 2019 suggests Parliament could be asked to approve the Brexit bill and other divorce terms with only a broad outline of what trade relations will be. Downing Street played down the concerns and said it believed Mr Davis had dealt with the role. The Secretary of State set out yesterday, and the Commission agreed with him, that the agreement that was reached last week is a political agreement, but that will move forward into a withdrawal agreement, which will be legally binding, a spokesman said. The Prime Minister defended her controversial divorce agreement, dramatically struck in Brussels on Friday, in the Commons yesterday. Tory Eurosceptics have been generally keeping their powder dry until the shape of the government's proposed trade deal becomes clearer. But there are fears that Mrs May has already committed the UK to soft Brexit by promising to mirror some key EU rules in order to prevent a hard Irish border. Some MPs also voiced alarm at the prospect of paying a divorce bill to the EU of around £39 billion, although Mrs May has insisted no money will be handed over if there is no deal. The government is desperate to paper over the cracks at least until after the crucial EU summit, when the bloc's leaders will decide whether to approve the start of trade talks. But delivering the annual Margaret Thatcher lecture at London's Carlton Club last night, Lord Lawson smashed the fragile truce. Who has been urging the PM to leave the bloc with no deal and revert to World Trade Organization (WTO) terms, said the divorce deal was just about acceptable so far as it goes. But he added, "We find ourselves today quite unnecessarily as a supplicant, in a humiliating state of cringe, begging for what is both unnecessary and unattainable, a posture which would have been anathema to Margaret Thatcher." The time has come to call an end to this demeaning process. We must get up off our knees. Enough is enough. Lord Lawson, who was Chancellor under Thatcher, said the government have allowed ourselves to become bogged down in the fruitless quest for a post-Brexit trade deal with the EU, wasting precious time and making concession after concession to try and achieve one.